Martin says he would like to talk about DC becoming the 53rd state. It's pretty sure that the autocorrect or the translation caught you. But anyway, welcome to the show, Martin. What do you have to say?
Oh, well, actually, I said the 51st. So
I had a feeling that the auto screener gets it a little bit wrong sometimes.
I'd just like to know what your opinion on that is, and what do you think? What's your opinion on that? Should DC become the 51st?
Yes, would be my short version. The longer version, to give you just a quick synopsis. Initially, my reaction was kind of like, I'm not sure. And the more I researched into it for this episode, there's 700,000 Americans who live there. They pay the most in taxes, federal taxes, per capita, per person, than any other state in the country. They currently have no voting representation in Congress whatsoever. They have one member of the House that cannot vote. Maryland does not want DC to be a part of Maryland. The last polling data that I found was from 2016. If somebody can find something more recent that can show that they do, that I would be open to that. But Maryland doesn't want those American citizens living in DC currently to come back into Maryland. And this whole country was founded on, no taxation without representation. These are American citizens who are paying more per person in taxes than anybody else. And they're currently no representation for them in Congress. The counter argument that I've seen boils down to, well, the founders didn't want the capital district to be a city. Okay, well, you can define what a district is, and this would still retain a district and provide American citizens that are living there with no representation. There's no minimum limit in the Constitution for the size of the District of Columbia or the federal district. There's a maximum limit, but there's not a minimum. So shrinking it, which has already been done historically once in this country, I don't see an argument against that, especially considering we've already done it once. And then the other argument that exists is, well, it's going to give Democrats more power. I see that, but that doesn't seem to be a good reason to not give them representation. Like if we go back to 1776, there were people in British Parliament saying we don't want to give the American colonies the right to vote because they might not vote the way we want. And you don't get to tell people, American citizens, they don't get to vote just because you don't like what the outcome might be. I mean, that doesn't work for me, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. But again, I'm more than welcome to your opinions or anything that I might be missing.
Well, unfortunately, I had several different subjects, and that was one of them. And I'm just wondering.
No, you can ask another question. I mean, you don't have to argue with me about it.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a couple of things. One is, I'd like to know what your opinion is of the Chauvin situation.
The short version of the Chauvin verdict, I think that pulling the man, Mr. Floyd, back out of the car and then kneeling on his neck for 9 minutes when he's already in handcuffs and then him dying, I think the prosecution did a good job of proving that that was not police policy, and that the medical experts the prosecution bought did an excellent job of, proving that had he not had his neck kneeled on for 9.5 minutes, that he wouldn't have died. I think a lot of the confusion on the Chauvin verdict refers specifically to the Murder 2 verdict. In Minnesota, my understanding, disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, is Murder 2 specifically in Minnesota is basically like felony assault. Felony assault falls under Murder 2. So they're saying that since Chauvin didn't follow policy, kneeling on the guy's neck for 9.5 minutes, kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes qualified as assault. Therefore, it became murder, or it became Murder 2 because he died from a felony assault. That's my understanding. In a lot of states, it wouldn't have fallen under Murder 2, but because it was in Minnesota and that's the way their laws read, that's the reason he got a guilty charge on the murder verdict. Does that make sense?
Well, I do understand what you're saying, but, I do have a very vast medical background. And the way I looked at it, yes, the prosecution, the multitude of prosecutors that they had, the lawyers they had, yes, I think they did their job as far as it pretty much, I mean, their whole case pretty much was 9 minutes and 29 seconds. And, I absolutely believe that this was multitude of things, not just one thing. And the other thing is, kneeling on his back of his neck, kneeling on the back of his neck, I would like to know where they figured, you're not cutting off the carotid or the jugular. So, and even if he was on that whole right side of his, of where the arteries are pumping blood, you also have the other side, and you have the circle of Willis, which supplies the brain. So the brain's not going to lose any oxygen just by that alone.
So my understanding, and you'll have to forgive me because I watched the majority of the trial, but I didn't watch it this week. My understanding was basically that you could, by kneeling on the neck, either keep oxygenated blood from getting into the brain or from exiting the brain type of situation. And that's what the pulmonologists and the medical experts who testified for the prosecution said was basically the cause. Basically that you could deprive somebody of oxygen without having to physically, choke them to death. And that's why you didn't have any ligature marks.
Well, I've worked in pulmonary a lot, and I have to disagree with that. Like I said, the other side, you got the same jugular and carotid going up to the brain, and you got what they call the circle of Willis up there, which circles the brain and feeds all the veins up there, and then it exits the same way. So, as far as him being on and absolutely including the right side, I'm not saying that he obviously didn't play a part in this.
Okay.
But I also believe that there was multitude. The prosecution wants to just think that there's absolutely nothing to do with drugs, and unless you know drugs, I deal with fentanyl all the time. I would give fentanyl to patients. Now I wouldn't give the meth, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I mean, these are two, he got it from the streets. He didn't get it from a pharmacy. He didn't. So who's to say that what's in it was not really bad stuff?
So my understanding would be that would be the medical examiner there that declared it was a homicide, right? That's who would decide and who was to say.
I think that you have different experts saying that the levels that they were at could by itself be a cause of death. But that
I agree with you.
One, okay,
so
you
let me clarify. I'm not trying to cut you off, but I think you're at a good point for me to kind of answer a question or respond to a statement here. I agree with you that different experts said different things, right? Obviously, the jury in this particular instance found the experts that the prosecution brought a whole lot more convincing than the evidence that the defense presented. I think you and I would agree with that. And even you were saying that obviously Officer Chauvin's actions contributed to this outcome, right?
Well, I mean, you gotta understand, okay? Me being medical, if I hear of anybody, no matter what it is, if I hear anybody say that there's no pulse, you can bet your ass I'm going to be, doing some compressions. The ventilation's kind of going by the wayside, but you want to start pumping the blood.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that in that situation, I just, to me, you just can't narrow it down to one thing. Okay, the one thing is he was on his neck, he was on his back, and he caused the death. Well, no, I think I think there was a percentage of that possibly. I think the drugs in the system, you have an upper or a downer, and they're fighting. Okay, now they said, okay, well, he stopped. He stopped for a little while, and then he went back to it. Okay, and I can tell you right now that that when you go back, it can be more dangerous than if you just maintained a regular level in your system. So,
no, I have that understanding as well. I think.
Okay, so
I think had.
I would be done, but.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess you want me to hurry up, but I guess the point that I'm trying to make is the drugs in the system. I'm going to probably say something that maybe some people don't like, and you know what? Actually, I don't really care because this is my opinion. But if you add all that stuff up, okay, the drugs in the system, that tumor that he had, which can and cannot secrete adrenaline, which that's another upper. And then he also I don't know exactly which coronary arteries they were talking about, so excuse that part. But on one side he had 75% occlusion, on the other side he had 90% occlusion. Unless you've dealt with patients that are like that, that in itself can also kill people.
Yeah.
And I'm not, nobody, okay, obviously, Floyd shouldn't have died, because he was passing a counterfeit bill. That doesn't make any sense at all. Should have been, he should have gone to jail. They should have tried him or whatever about that.
Okay. You and I agree there.
Oh, okay. Obviously, I mean that nobody deserves to die like for that. But okay, the thing is, and again, part of the multitude of reasons is, okay, did the drugs play a part in his being paranoid? And because the first thing he did when they tapped on the window, of course they did have a gun. And don't shoot me. And I can probably understand about that.
Yeah,
but
I can too.
It wasn't the first, but it wasn't the first time that a year before that the same thing happened. So now you got him out. You put him in cuffs, and you walk him over. He sits down. He's fairly cooperative at that. But then the part that he's not cooperative. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I'm just trying not to interrupt you too much, except to let you know where I agree or disagree.
Okay, so they walked him over to the squad car, and then they tried to put him in the car. Okay, he didn't want to go. He fought, and
he resisted while in cuffs. I don't think fought is the word I would use, but I understand what you're trying to relay.
Okay, I don't always use the politically correct word, but
I'm not worried about politically correct, man. I'll let the last guy say fuck a few times. I've said it myself before. I'm just trying to I know there's probably not many people who haven't seen this, incident by this point in time, but for like the one guy that might be in my stream that hasn't seen it, I don't want him thinking George Floyd was like swinging at officers. That's the only reason I clarify.
No. I mean, he was in cuffs. Unless he's going to bring his legs up to his arms. But the thing is, he fought. He did not want to go there. And he resisted the best he could. They got him on one side, then he pushed himself out the other side. So then they pulled him out the rest. And then, sorry, I'm not a cop, but I'm going to tell you that I've dealt with some really irate family members, okay, in the hospital and stuff. And they can be very distracting, and you want to be able to still maintain as a professional You want to maintain what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But human nature is going to say, hey, you know, he didn't pull out his mace because that female firefighter was approaching him. You don't do that, okay? Period. She was right as far as telling the cops, hey, you know, check, is he breathing? All that. And I totally understand. But the thing is, the crowd was getting rowdy. That black dude was really mouthy, okay?
Well, and I can understand that.
You know,
so,
right. But the thing is,
let me see if I can fast forward this. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have to run.
Line is,
well, no. So even if we ran through the whole situation, right, and said everything that happened was justified up until the point where Floyd became non-responsive, and then Chauvin continued to kneel on him for another, 2.5 minutes? Right? Everything before that point was justified. Let's just say that for the sake of argument. I think that your case and the case you're presenting as, you know, the defense witness right now might have flown with the jury. Like, you know, okay, well, you know, he followed police procedure. And then, you know, when Mr. Floyd was obviously not capable of resisting anymore, you know, he moved him into a recovery position per police, you know, procedure. And then, you know, he had a faulty heart or whatever the case was. And, you know, it might have contributed, but it might not have.
For silence is over.
And we can't put it all on the officer. I think that last 2.5 minutes was probably what put it overboard for the jury, but that's speculation on my part.
How long if somebody is without blood going to the brain, in other words, a heartbeat, how long before now, so in other words, approximately, how long was it from the time that he supposedly, you know, or let's say the officer, one of the other officers checked the pulse, said there was no pulse. From that point until the point that the ambulance got there.
I don't recall off the top of my head. I'm just saying from the people sitting on the jury hearing competing evidence from both sides and like giving both, okay, let's say everybody found, you know, both sides equal. I don't think that's what happened, but let's say they found your argument and the, you know, the coroner's argument and the pulmonologist who testified, you know, for the prosecution, they found all that equal. I think that last 2.5 minutes kneeling on somebody's neck who's clearly unresponsive with your hands in your pockets off and on, I think that's going to be hard to get past. I really do.
Okay, well, the other thing that I want you to think about also is, if you don't get blood to the brain, oxygenated blood to the brain within about 4, 5, 6 minutes, right around there, 8 minutes, you're absolutely brain dead. But you have to get going with the CPR as soon as possible.
Yeah.
The ambulance people did not start CPR right away. They got Floyd in the ambulance and they started messing around trying. I mean, they had to put an OI into his shin, okay, for an IV access. But they didn't start CPR until they pulled out of there, and then they stopped and waited for another fire station or a fire truck to come to help. That's what the guy said. How much time elapsed before they actually started pumping? So I think there's a little part to that maybe the ambulance people should have started as soon as they got him in the truck, or maybe even on the ground.
Or maybe Officer Chauvin should have started when he was unresponsive.
Maybe, absolutely, but.
Maybe, being as charitable as possible as I can be from what I've seen, right? Because obviously I don't think you and I are ever going to agree on this, but trying to be as charitable as possible, like, you know, imagining myself on the jury, right? I think had you reached like, you know, okay, the George Floyd's unresponsive, even though I disagree with pulling him out of the police car in the first place to put him on the ground, okay? They do that, and I won't hold that against him for the sake of this, right? And then they kneel on his neck for, 7 minutes, right? And then he becomes unresponsive. And okay, it takes him half a minute to notice that Floyd isn't responsive, okay? And then for 2 minutes, if he pulled him over and started trying to do CPR and trying to, do respiration, all this kind of stuff, I could see maybe somebody on the jury saying, well, shit, it wasn't the outcome we wanted. Nobody should die over a $20 counterfeit. But that's not what happened.
Right. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that Chauvin didn't, shoulder some responsibility. But all three counts, and I know that you're probably not going to agree with me, but that's okay. I'm going to say it anyway if I can.
Yeah, you're free to. You've been more than civil. You're welcome to call back anytime. You can say what you need to say.
Okay. The other thing is when this happened to Floyd last year, what happened? And I mean, again, I'm trying to make a point, which is you have to put everything. You take everything as a totality. But what happened to all the different places? How many riots and how many people died because of this? Because they were pissed off and upset because of police brutality and all that. But how many innocent people died because people were rioting and stuff? And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I absolutely believe that the jury will take that into consideration. What's going to happen to us? If we did come back with maybe even a not guilty verdict or whatever, they have to live in the same community. They know the people will obviously know who you are. I'm not saying that that's always obviously the right thing, but it does happen. And, I'm just wondering if that didn't play some part in, people feeling the way they do. Because they want to be safe too. They don't want to get beat up or shot or killed because the verdict they come up with.
So, again, to be charitable, right? It may have. But you could make the same argument from the opposite side that, if they had let him off, it's because they would have been worried about the, police all sticking together and harassing the hell out of him, writing tickets or arresting him for no reason or whatever the case is. Whoever makes that claim, by necessity, takes on a burden of proof to prove that's what caused it, right? So we can sit here and hypothesize all day long, but neither one of us know, right?
Well, actually, I do know. I know pretty much everything. So
okay. Well, I appreciate that. I definitely need to talk to you more often then.
Well, I tell you, now can I ask you where you out of?
Las Vegas, but I travel around the country for work Monday through Friday.
Oh, well, I'm out of Colorado.
Oh, yeah, so, I've been to Colorado a few times. I used to go to school in New Mexico, and we'd take winter breaks up there so we could go snowboarding and stuff. Great state. I love it.
Okay. Well, and like I said, I'm this thing here, I watched the trial because unfortunately, I'm recovering from a broken neck. I broke that a couple of years ago and I'm still going through things. But, so I was able to watch pretty much the whole thing. And if what I couldn't see, then I would tape and watch later. But I just think that yes, he does have to shoulder some responsibility as far as that. But to as far as I'm concerned, it's a lot more multifaceted or focal or whatever you want to call it than just 9/20/29. And the thing is, they didn't actually. I mean, I saw several times, when they got him in the squad car, he really, he went almost flat on his on the seat and then tried to push himself out himself. Then they got to the point where they had to pull him out.
I don't know that you had to pull him out. I mean, you could have shut the fucking door. I mean, that's just my opinion. But hey, we've been running for 25 minutes for your call right now, so I'm going to give you a chance to get in your last, your final words, and then hopefully I hear from you again next week.
Well, I'm going to definitely keep this open, but I mean, it was a tragedy. There's a lot of things that could have gone a different way. You know, unfortunately, I just think that, and I'm not saying that he should have been given a free ride, but I am saying, because I do absolutely back the police 100% because they got a tough job. And by the way, I'm also military. I'm 18 years Navy, and I also served in the Gulf War. So, unfortunately, I would like to have maybe been part of the other conversation because, you know, whatever you guys were talking about, I just got the tail end of it. But
yeah,
anyway,
he basically just wanted to discount my opinion because I disagreed with him. And he said, what have you ever done to serve your community? And I said, well, I served in the military. And he's like, oh, well, what conflict did you serve in? And I said, I didn't serve in any conflict, nor have I claimed to. And then he said, well, then you were just grifting. And at that point, I was pretty much done with the conversation, to be honest with you.
well, like I said, I just heard the last part, and yeah, he kind of went off the deep end.
I think he just got frustrated because we disagreed, and we can have civil conversations and disagree. The first caller, Hardwood and Sock, has called in 4 or 5 times. He's a conservative that lives up in Pennsylvania. Great guy. We disagree on plenty of things, and we go back and forth. You seem like a very nice guy. We've talked back and forth. You agree that Chauvin should have had some consequences. You just don't agree with the murder charge sticking. I think that all 3 were justified. We can agree and disagree on that stuff, but we can have a civil conversation, and I think that's the most important thing to do. I think the caller prior to you just got frustrated because you've never been a cop? Well, then you can't speak to it. So when I asked him if he'd ever been a cop, no, he had never been a cop, but he still wanted to talk about it, and he got frustrated right out the gate.
Just out of curiosity, what was his slant on that Chauvin thing?
I don't know that we ever really got to much of the Chauvin stuff because he just wanted to throw insults, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a shame. You and I definitely got a lot further in it.
Well, you know, I think nowadays this is what people should be doing is talking. And, you know, you disagree with me, that's fine. I disagree with you, that's fine too. I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing we can do about that. But now, can I, you know...
I think you and I agree that a big problem right now is that both sides aren't talking to each other. I think a lot of people are very much listening to what their talking heads are saying about the opposition. Whether you're listening to Rachel Maddow or whether you're listening to Tucker Carlson, you're not talking to a conservative, you're not talking to somebody who's a progressive. And a lot of, you know, hey, maybe you've got some good ideas that I haven't thought of. Maybe I've got some good ideas that you haven't thought of. But we need to talk to each other to figure it out. And just listening to the talking heads doesn't get us there. But anyway, 30 seconds, brother, and then I got to let you go.
Well, I will absolutely call back. And the conversation is unlimited. We can go in any direction.
Yeah. Generally, I limit the conversation to today's show, whatever the topic is for today's show, and last week's show. But if you have an off-the-wall question that you want to ask, as long as you're okay with me saying, hey, I'm not familiar with that subject, but this is my general opinion so far based on what I know, yeah, you can ask me anything.
Okay. Well, first off, what's your name? What's your first name?
Chris.
Chris. Okay, Chris. You know, no, I don't watch the Today Show. I don't watch a whole lot of TV that much at all. So I don't watch Today, so I won't be able to tell you what the topics are. So
No. I meant my stream currently today, what's in the title, not the Today Show.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
so like this one was on DC Statehood, and last week's was BLM and policing in America, right? So those are kind of the two things I'm centered around. If you want to ask me something like off the wall, like what did I think about, you know, Russia threatening the Ukraine, I can speak to that, but I'm not obviously going to be as well informed with sources behind me immediately. So like the Chauvin verdict stuff, I have watched that, right? But I don't have like 20 sources ready for me because I didn't do a full stream on the Chauvin trial.
Oh, I got you. Well, you know,
But I think that's going to wrap us up, Martin. I appreciate you calling in, my man.
No, I got you. If you can just tell me what you're going to be talking about next week.
It depends on what happens topically during the week, but if you follow me on Twitter or if you notify on the YouTube bit, it'll be on the title as soon as I've got to see what's trending during the week politically.
Okay, I got you. All right, well, listen, you take it easy.
You as well. You can also find it on the website on upcoming episodes. So if you go to theleftSpeaks.com, click on upcoming episodes. Like I said, depending on what's trending about Wednesday, Thursday is usually when I update it, and the title will pop up there.
Okay, will do. Well, thank you, Chris. Talk to you later.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Great call. Welcome anytime. All right, everybody. I think that is going to wrap us up for today. I apologize that I have not had a whole lot of chance to keep up with chat. The one thing I kind of caught was apparently Rusky was upset that I referred to him as Rusty. Rusty, the auto mod, the auto screener for the call-in queue, caught you. It said that your name was Rusty, the same way that it has, miscalculated. I think it was Martin that just called in about DC Statehood and said the 53rd state instead of the 51st. If that's what got you off on the wrong foot with me, I apologize. But you are more than welcome to call in next episode. I am already an hour and a half past due, so I have to get off of here and go spend some time with my family. Everybody, if you have not already, like, follow, subscribe on social media. You can get updates from me. You can find links to the episode on YouTube. I would also recommend you might want to click the bell notification for when I go live, because this is more of a show than it is a live stream. Every Sunday, 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you want to find clips of just the calls or just specific stances, you can find that on the YouTube channel instead of having to watch the whole stream. Those usually get uploaded throughout the week. Again, thank you everybody for calling in. I need to straighten out my call screener. See you next time. Appreciate you being here. The call screener is automated, brother. There's nothing I can do about it. It's a text voice to text thing. So unless you know how to program better than whatever Microsoft or Google or whatever program they're using to do the voice to text, I don't have a solution for it. But anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. And Cave Dwelling Cannibal Witch, thank you for the follow. That's the one I missed. Intro as the exit, and everybody have a wonderful rest of your weekend.